Colleagues, I suggest we kick off. We've given sufficient time for latecomers to join us. That's the final session for today. I hope we are in for a very lively discussion. The subject is regions and digital technology. Well, you may say it digital technology, region, whatever you like. It's my pleasure to introduce our panel. Today we have Mr. Tsukar, Minister of the Digital Development and Communications of Novosibirsk Oblast, Mr. Dolgunov, Chairman of the Executive Board of the Bank of the Republic of Sakhalin, Mr. Goryainov, Director of Development of VK Digital Technologies. I call it Federal Big Tech. Mr. Karpukhin, Director for Business Development of ISL KPO from Tatarstan. And Mr. Yury, Business Development Director of Complex Plus from Magnitogorsk. And myself, Mr. Bogdanov, Centralized Bank, with our headquarters in Rostov-on-Don. I will ask two questions from the start to our floor. There are very important questions and not easy to answer. I hope you will be sincere in your answers. I've agreed this idea of the central bank. I agree that probably will give the gist of our discussions in a sort of minutes as a description of the best practice of regional businesses of banks for development of innovations at regional level and how to support such technologies. Development support is the difficult thing because it directly relates to the issue of personnel of HR. It's a demographic issue and also an issue of innovations. What are we doing now? We need to identify what we're doing in each of which others regions, to believe that our region is in an innovative one, and to create perception of our region as an innovative one outside of our country. And if we talk about their personnel support, how well people help us to create innovations, how we can create proper conditions to entice people, entice staff who can create innovations, and not only maintain stuff, but also to develop our stuff. Sergeyevich, your project of inhabitant map, there are plenty of such projects across the country, but your project is an unusual one. There are a lot of services, including for support of young scientists. Could you describe these innovations and other? Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Do you hear the sound quality is okay? Thank you very much. Indeed, I would like to share experience. Novosibirsk is a place where we train personnel. We have 7,000 slots for training engineering students, and our oblast is represented at the Russia exhibition at VDNH. Our governor put forth an initiative late last year, you know, Pushkin Card project, and Novosibirsk as the largest scientific and academic center. And governor asked the question, why not support only students, but also to make it available to younger scientists? It's a sort of original measure of support, how to maintain your staff in the regions. And Mr. Travnikov, our governor, started this project Lavrentiev card. Lavrentiev is a well-known scientist in the Soviet Union, which allows for a certain amount of about 5,000 rubles to visit various cultural events, similar to the privileges given by the Pushkin card. It's a small example of maintaining young scientists in our city, but it's a sort of identificator of a scientist, which is a sort of identity of a citizen for a receipt of any digital services. To receive a service, you need to be identified. Well, once your identity is established, you may be eligible for privileges, etc. And very many people who are eligible for some privileges, maybe 20 or 30% of them. Do you think how many people who are entitled to privileges in our region as percentage of the total population? 30%, 50, 80%, 50%. Indeed, we thought below. But when we calculate it from bottom to top, there is a school kid card, students also entitled to privileges, families with numerous children, patients, well, about 80% of inhabitants of our oblast have a privilege to a certain extent. Plus, there are loyalty cards, etc. At the end of the day, 90% of population of our oblast are entitled to various privileges and special treatment. How to access such privileges? In business easy, QR code for payment for services or for access to some hall, etc. That indeed a lot of is done to easily use that or other service. When you deal with the state, it's somewhat more complicated. There is always a trend. The trend is, let's say, a runner-up. All innovations emerge in businesses, then the state catches up. For the state, it's some certificates, paperback passport or paperback driver's license, etc. But nevertheless, I have said a father with many children, to obtain a discount at a bowling center or at aqua park. And I've got first to go to present a recipe to a children's chemist. I carry with me always 3 birth certificates for our children, etc., to avoid all of that, so that a person will have at the end of the day a universal card. It's not a plastic card to which we're used. It's a mobile application where you present your identifier, which gives you access to a variety of services, including with privileges. Therefore, we had the idea to, let's say, bundle all identifiers based on the inhabitants card, based on the national payment system MIR. No matter what bank issued this card, any holder of this card describes or draws his or her portrait in application, and through this identifier you are eligible to all of the services I mentioned. Fundamental services like paying for your ride on municipal transport, the access to some buildings, buying medications at a discount, etc. On top of these basic services, there are some proactive notifications. When, for example, a child is born to a family, we inform such person to what benefits and privileges such a person has a right, plus a variety of commercial services which are also available to such person, like a visit to the zoo, ski passes with discount, etc. There were a lot of attempts to create a universal plastic card. Now it will be a digital passport, but we are making steps at regional levels because it is impossible to take into account the big number of regional privileges. We decided to create our original inhabitant card. And later on it will be transferred to the entire territory of the country. There is access not only to the public services, but also to business services, which is very convenient, all in one place, one-point shopping. We talked about human-centric approach. Well, I never use, I don't carry banknotes. It's all in my mobile. The same applies here. You have a universal application which gives you access to all benefits and privileges. Your experiences, if I understand it correctly, will be a foundation for the federal project. Novosibirsk group is heading the group on virtual social card. We look from the position of the government service, public service portal, single identification, etc. I believe, thank you, both the regional innovation and, which is important, that it can be replicated in other regions. We'll look at your experience. Now, Nikolay Nikolaevich, I'd like to give the floor to you. Why? Because, well, you face a twofold problem. On the one hand, in your region, you create the value of your region. Then the other difficulty is that you work in the extreme north.
And quite a long time you didn't have an access to internet, and which was not the same as in other locations in the country. How can you produce innovations in such conditions at the highly competitive banking market? And how do you create value for the staff which may replicate innovations and be ahead of them? I would like to thank the organizers of Phenopolis. They allowed us to have our stands at the exhibition jointly with the region. And in order to answer this question, we have to get back to the history. In Yakutia, 15 years ago, there was a vast territory with a very small portion of the population with no internet at all. And when in the framework of such a local story, we started creating internal services, sites, forums, and people used the local internet without an access to the Russian and international internet. And in Driver, the international company emerged as a result of such exercises. And in Driver is one of the aggregators of taxi and the Maitona studio. And these companies are unicorns. And people of the far north were incentivized by this harsh climate and long polar nights, so that people sit down and develop software. And we are very lucky that today Alexander Nikolayev is the leader of Yakutia. He is an engineer, and his team works very intensively, jointly with Rostelecom, and 93-95% of Yakutia, also covering the Arctic settlements, have high-speed internet. And that was how the entire landscape has been changed. At the level of the government, the strategic document on the credit economy was launched. And they put together all the sectors of the economy. And the priority is given to the IT, jewelry, animation. And thanks to that focus, we are actively developing in that spheres. And we are the regional bank, the only one being controlled by the regional government, and we contribute much onto that story. The first IT movement started later than the major federal players, and in 2017, jointly with the Northeastern Federal University, we created our own IT. That was done right after Phenopolis and launch, and after our visit to this exhibition. And we meet here the people of the future, and this is our story. In 2016, we funded the training of the team of the Republic, and for 2.5 years, these juniors studied abroad, and nowadays they are the leaders not only of the IT industry, but the entire creative economy of my country, of my region. And these are the stakeholders and the carriers of our culture. We have quite a number of gifted and talented people with a very good educational base of our university, and they get a high quality education, and we have a very good HR. And we have good connections with the Federal University, and I am the member of the Supervisory Council of my university and of this university. And as of the 4th grade, they get involved in the real effort, and they are provided some job. And this is a very harmonious development of the university and business. And we started forming our team 4 or 5 years ago. And now the team of the bank has augmented by 88%. But the team of developers have been added by so it has increased by 4 or 5 times. That is how we set up this team. And we would like to show you the map of Yakutia, and it shows the cross-functional teams operations. And this is an interdisciplinary team, interdepartmental team, the regional team, and we also act as a product team. So those teams were all in between, and they formed the service of the population of Yakutia and the map of the population of Yakutia. So it means that you work jointly with the university in training the highly efficient specialists, and also you invited people from other federal centers. Is that right? Yes, indeed. And the population of the region is not that high, so we need new knowledge, new competences, and you don't have to stir in your own source, and we have to invite people from other regions. Alrosa company from Yakutia is located in Novosibirsk. Are you going to take them back? Alrosa 2 or 3 years ago decided to present and relocate all their services to Novosibirsk. Sooner or later, they will get back to Yakutia. I also like how Yakutia retains their specialists and how they attract the people to the sector. They come to the Mercedes, to the remote village, who came to the village driving that car, IT people, and the children responded they would like to become IT specialists as well. I fully agree with you that we do not just have to settle the current problem, how to retain personnel and see no growth for the future, but there should be another center created, attracting people, offering some jobs to them, and people from Novosibirsk should come back to Yakutia. And you have a very precious expertise. And I would like to talk about south of Russia. Innovations is something habitual there. But when people say the word innovation, so they may presuppose some new expressions like banking, and we've been dealing with it for about 20 years. And our staff lectures in Ran Hicks to the metalworks. And they have the center of competences in the south. And the question arises how to deal with it. And but in other words, it means responsibility for your own region, for your own business, and it's a social responsibility as well. And we're talking about human centricity. And also it's worthy to mention the environmental responsibility. You live here at this land, and your ancestors lived there, and the coming generations will live there as well. And we have the banking, the responsible banking. And without the digital approach, it won't be viable. But digitalization without any responsible approach doesn't mean anything substantial. And actually, it's a lifelong story for your region. And while creating such a business, you have to contribute to the best practices pool. And your interesting example with Mercedes should be an exemplary one. And that actually penetrates onto the students' milieu. And of course, the material incentivization would be a good option, because we talked about the IT mortgage, but it is a federal project. In the Rostov Oblast, the IT developers had mid-sized salary, and they didn't catch up with the mortgage, even for their region. And therefore, the Central Invest Bank, jointly with the government of the Rostov Oblast, had to provide the benefits for IT developers. So the federal ceiling is now lower. And we may also cover IT developers accordingly. With regard to the federal plan, and global players should find some new opportunities for the regions, especially for the precious stuff of the region. And non-material motivation, and this is another factor to cite. And getting back to the essence of this problem is that everyone should contribute into the regional policy with the key competences. And once you define this key competence, we may talk about the integration with the regional banks, for example, and all the pilot projects of fintech, and especially the map of the world and marketplaces and deposits were all aligned, and also campus and transport cards were unpacked. Valery Valerievich showed it to us, and the CBR management was very appreciative of that, and it was issued in Rostov-on-Don, and it was not the Moscow business. And in the regions, people are focused on some certain affairs, for example, integration in fintech, and they do it appropriately and at a higher speed. And the first certificates, the means of rehabilitation, is a very interesting project as well. And the opportunity to take part in this particular initiatives is a real good contribution. And we are talking about the extreme south, the extreme north, and pretty often it becomes indispensable for us all. And it makes real good concept for us all, and we are guided by this, the essence, by the new notions, by some new initiatives. And we are talking about the regional players, and Andrey Alexeyevich is here with us, representing VK. You are the federal fintech on the one hand, but on the other hand, you have quite a number of projects with the universities, and you are setting up regional centers as well. And I think only Rostelecom has something similar. Will you please will you please share some secrets with us? What makes you be involved in that process at a large extent without any detriment to the federal level? We are the federal player being present in various locations and regions. And once we open the new office in the new region, the local companies somehow get anxious because of our presence. But they think that they will lose jobs, but that is not true. We have a public cloud, for example. It's a platform, and the few engineers are servicing this platform from 39 cities and towns of this country. And on a remote basis, our platform is covered. 3 people are from Novosibirsk, 3 from Rostov-on-Don, 3 from Kazan, nobody from Yakutia, and 1 from Magnitogorsk. And it doesn't annoy us, so we have the regional coverage. But when we open the office from the perspective of the IT company, we set up the same standards as for Moscow and St. Petersburg office. And IT sphere is quite a compatible one and competitive one for human resources. And it does not necessarily mean that these people should come to the office every day. They work remotely from home. And people are willing to be involved in that business. And whenever I interview a person online, and I understand that this person comes through Face ID, and there is a high probability that this person will be appreciative of our offer, no matter where he is located, in Sochi or in Kazan. The technology of that sort allows us to hire people from all over the country. As the government is developing in that sphere, we have electronic document flow. You do not have to necessarily go to Moscow or St. Petersburg. Everything is done remotely via our technologies. And this is a real cool technology. Further on, the government incentivizes the development of innovations. And nowadays, we have tax monitoring at the level of the government. And that gave the job to Rostechnadzor, to other companies experimenting with the remote monitoring of the hazardous production sites. And our key task is to support these companies, subjects, and banks, and to transfer technologies at the highest possible speed so that they sell their products as soon as possible. And the regional banks use this public cloud, and this is welcomed all over the country. We start from the startups providing grants worth 2 million rubles. We do not have any bureaucracy, and there we need 5 days for application to be studied and reviewed. And that is how we fight for HR. Education. We contribute a lot onto the educational project that is K2K education. 2,400,000 Russian school children took part in the VK platforms, and they competed there. 190,000 students have been covered by various trainings and coaching at the chairs, having our specialists as a lecturers. And we have Java, house control, and we try to be in line as other major companies do, in line of various innovations. And this becomes absolutely indispensable. And the situation looks somewhat different today, as opposed to our time when we visited the university like 10 years ago. I do remember the blackboard and the chalk on the blackboard, and it's hard to imagine how it works now. And already over 95% of RUNET covers the country. And digitalization and VK Messenger are those great novelties. And that is how we integrate the messages and banking technologies. They do it via VK interface, and we give them a chance to spend as much time as they can, and have the free time for other things like leisure time. And you should speak from the perspective of the federal centers being a magnet for them. And we're talking about the regional centers for competence encompassing 39 cities and towns.
Where we open our office, it turns into innovation center. VK attracts a lot of people, smart people. Everyone wants to know what we're doing with available technologies, and then we use what is called a roadshow or in our regional agenda, and the possibility of a remote workstation. There is a lot of argument about that. Before the pandemic and after pandemic is the major difference in attitude towards working remotely. For us, one of the issues is to bring people back into office. Many companies face it. For various roles, job roles, there are different efficiencies, whether you work remotely or in office. Not always jobs require working in office, but accessibility of communication technologies changed dramatically over 3 years period. Maybe Sergey will say a few words about it. In Novosibirsk, officials from different agencies and ministries use VK technologies, and it was not the case 3 years ago, but for the pandemic they wouldn't have used it. Well, it's interesting to replicate your experience in other regions where the situation is different. Viktor Alexeyevich, you have faced a double challenge. You not only compete with federal players, you also are located in a police that's extra companies, because innovative companies flock there and you have thousands of people employed. Yes, our company is located in Kazan, in a special economic zone in Napolis. We're a production company. We produce computational devices and radio electronics. We have 2 production plants of significant capacity, 1.5 million units of radio electronic equipment, and indeed, I would put it like this, that production of such scale imposes certain requirements on personnel who are engaged in our sphere. We manufacture high-tech products using specialists who are, by definition, by default, supposed to be top class. And at the same time, there are quite a few of routine operations, and there are a lot of operations which not everyone likes, but there is plenty of scope for development, for career paths. At our first production plant, there was a jig and conveyor technology, what is called knockdown production. And we manufactured ourselves on top of production specialists. We place a special focus on designers, process engineers, etc. And since our region is a pretty high-tech region, I'm talking about the Republic of Tatarstan, we have to fight for personnel. How do we fight for our people? We try to entice people when they are still visiting, going to school or college. We train them. We demonstrate to them advantages of our production chain. Indeed, at our production line, we have pretty young people. Pretty young, what do I mean? The total number of employed, that's blue collars, is over 400. Very young, starting from 16, upwards of 16, to maybe from 16 to 22. Then, if they are interested in what we are doing, they continue their further training in such establishments like Kazan Aviation Institute or Physics Institute, etc. If they like it, they work as process engineers, or if they are interested in working at high-tech production, they proceed in their career with people who are with us for 10 or 15 years and become directors of various production facilities. What do we do to incentivize them? Why people are staying with us? First and foremost, on top of training, we look at HR. We try to create proper living environment for our staff. We have what we call a cyber village. These are apartment houses, which is made available at 3% mortgage loans. We have excellent infrastructure in terms of for young families. In Tatarstan, although I'm a Muscovite myself, in our republic, well, there are plenty of kindergartens for families with numerous children. It's very good for young families. In a nutshell, it's like this. We can talk a lot about our production, but what is essential is that we select personnel and motivate them to participate in production of sophisticated radio electronics, and we give them support in their everyday life, where it's early involvement starting from school, and then very good career path, career trajectory. Then we help them in their everyday life so that they don't have any obstacles in training or work, so that the household issues are not a problem for them. You solve their household problems even before they arise. Excellent. I would give the floor to Mikhail Vitalyevich with pleasure, because he is a father of 5. Give him a round of applause, please. And at the same time, talking about fintech, he represents a major fintech company with plenty of transactions on a daily basis. These transactions are processed by software of Compass Plus. And you are a pioneer in QR codes. Probably QR codes were only gaining popularity in China, and you were already offering QR codes in the remotest destinations in our country. Now that QR codes are discussed even to the extent that there are, let's say, excessive, how you develop your regional centers? We represent a very industrial region, Chelyabinsk Oblast. Although our government, regional government, allocates a lot of funding for innovative economy, but it is largely channeled to real sector. We are in fintech industry. We try to develop on our own. Moreover, we successfully export financial innovations across the world. We offer it to over 40 countries. Our payment solutions are used everywhere excepting Australia and Antarctica. We started over 30 years ago. Thanks to a production enterprise, a first project was the local cards for Magnitogorsk Metal Works for their payroll project. The possibility to use this for barter deals. Thereafter, we continued our development, and you were quite correct in saying QR codes. It was our history. Mobi Cash, that was our service. When people didn't know about QR codes better, we developed this story in our region, and we used QR code very actively at our mountain ski resorts for ski passes, etc. We use it in different restaurants, at catering facilities. Moreover, quite recently, we developing biometrics, and we have a BioPay service. We're using the copy or print to make a payment. That's a good story for places where there are plenty of people for catering.
You don't have to use any card, just a telephone with your fingerprint. And you are not even supposed to put your finger onto the glass. This is a part of the hygienic component. And it's also worthy to mention that in order to develop it, we have to have resources available. And the major federal companies create the centers for competence in the regions, but we view it as a competition for us. And the regional staff starts going to the federal centers. So we somehow try to use our own methods and try to oppose this particular movement. And we have a regional program in place for school children as of the 9th grade, the School of Programmers, where we recruit people and teach them the language of programming. And we have our own corporate university, which trains the specialists having already the technical background, and we may teach them providing some financial competences. So we have Tobolsk, Chelyabinsk state universities, and within the framework of these universities, we train the future IT staff. And as of today, we have 140 school children being taught at the School of Programming, and about 100 students are also being provided the educational course on the conversion. And 40% of these students will be hired by our company. And probably it's worthy to mention some exotic projects for the market, IT Forever, when we hire just girls who would like to test themselves in the technical specialities. And girls are very industrious and very picky and accurate. And we have various groups for the girls, and they are engineers, developers, testers, and part of them stay with us. So we try on a permanent basis to have some kind of a cushion, to have a safety cushion, and thus we try to be expanded technologically. And the pandemic actually opened the Pandora box, and Moscow companies arrived to regions, just doubling the salaries, and regional companies are somewhat worried about it, but we try to oppose this process. When the federal banks incorporated QR codes, you had them already, and the banks started creating their universities, and prior to that, you had your own schools. So really, we have to visit regions more often, and we printed the book about regional practices, and it's available for us all. And everything what we're discussing now is embedded in this book. And I would like to mention that all the secrets we're discussing today are resorted to the value of a human resource. And we're talking about the human-centered approach. And finally, we understand that it's a competitive advantage for us all. We have to assess our own value, and also we have to assess the motivation, and this is all embedded in the regional centers for innovations. And I would like to interview you all. There's some kind of a blitz interview, and please identify the key component, the case studies for centricity and the innovative approach in your regions, whether it allows you to conquer and compete with other regions, and being a specific region or being a specific company. Sergey, let's start from you. And the human centricity is it's a good idea, and Mr. Graf talked about it at the plenary session. We do not have to make a patient out of a human being. And talking about the digital approach, it should be user-friendly for the human being. Just one click, just a smile, or just a look. That's the one thing, but the information security and digital hygiene. And we still have the risks of fraud, the risks of disclosure of information, and yes, they are still in place. So people have to be informed on these risks. They have to be financially literate. And we need the digital literacy, and also the security and safety of the information. And Nikolay Nikolaevich, after the session yesterday, we discussed this very notion of human centricity. And the people of the North know how to deal with that. That's a means of surviving. You do not talk about human centricity when you live at the temperature of 62 degrees minus. And I'm not going to give you any case studies, but the many things what we do for our clients, for our future clients, and for the citizens of Yakutia are already rooted in the term of human centricity. These are not super digital stories, but these are inherent features of all our citizens. So the digital approach adds to the heating and warming of human beings, and your region is famous for human-centric approach, and that is a part of survival. I remember Rostov-on-Don when we had -35, and people tended to say that in Yakutia people have this type of behavior, and these are the best practices. And we have a special method of survival. When the apartments had cost 6 million, and the garage was about 1.5 million, and the car should. So they used the case which was called Natasha. It was essential for the ignition of the car. And in Yakutia, we even have the jams when the frost is very high. And next speaker, please. We as a company do operate for the benefit of our customers to make their leisure more interesting, and also we communicate with our employers and with the government, and the feasibility is a program product. It is a software, and the access to the server is very high, and people are not so they do not have it to wait. If something needs a line, people won't use it. And this is essential for IT companies, for internet companies. And we have to be highly competitive in terms of accessibility and speed. And we also have to be focused on our HR, on the corporate culture, on the support and internal development. We are concerned about our staff so that they feel comfortable at their working place and have fun. Accessibility for clients and comfort for the employees. Accepted. Viktor Vyacheslamovich. I fully agree with the previous speakers, indeed. We are a production company, and we ensure, as people tend to say, the technological sovereignty. And there were hard times when we were forced to be actively involved in the program of import substitution, thanks to the politics of HR selection. And so the focal point was a human being. But people are also irreplaceable, but this is not for us. There are quite a number of unique specialists at our production site, and we do not want to substitute them. And the specialists in our company will just give us their love, and it's reciprocal. And in Tatarstan, we do not have this flow of staff, and we're very proud of that. And we're very much concerned about our colleagues, and we will do it in the future. And there are no, your staff cannot be replaced. It's a very good-looking premise of human centricity. In my view, we do not have any universal answer to this question, and we cannot say that everything has to be human-centric. And we've just mentioned that if we're talking about some high-precision tools, we are talking not about the human being, but about the high-precision operations. There's much depends on that high precision. I know what the extreme north is all about, what is 50 degrees centigrade minus, and you will never be abandoned there. And if we are talking about the spiral dynamics, at what level the company is positioning itself, and they have to think of the human relations internally at the company's level, and human centricity in this country is the presumption of innocence of the law-governed state. That is my answer. But this is all okay with innovations in your company. And when it is minus 48, the human centricity grows. And plus 40, it grows even further. On Rostov-on-Don, we had the same human centricity. As soon as the airport starts operating, you are all invited. Dear panelists, dear guests, we put together the wonderful library of good practices at the regional level, and how to set up teams, how to create innovations so that they are disseminated everywhere. Thank you so much.